Now, as I've kind of jokingly said before, maybe the one good thing to come about because of the rise of Skywalker is a sort of truce within the Star Wars fan base. Not a complete one, mind you. There are still plenty of people who will argue about one thing or another, but it seemed like after Episode 9, after the trilogy was all said and done, most fans were disappointed about one thing or another in regards to the way it had gone, or was just in general handled, or planned, or not planned. Even most of those people who really loved The Rise of Skywalker and enjoyed the sequel trilogy overall will seem to reluctantly agree that the whole thing could have been handled better. Another interesting after effect of The Rise of Skywalker happened with some in the media or critics in general. After a consensus of praise from them for both the first two movies in the trilogy, and some of them even vigorously defending the brilliant subversion of expectations that Rian Johnson gave us with The Last Jedi, from hateful, bigoted fans who didn't like it because, as they claimed, all the prominent roles women got, or the diversity it showed in general, despite the fact that if the film could somehow be seen in-universe, it would be the opposite of diversity, considering every major and nearly every minor role was a human character and almost no aliens were prominent. Anyway, after praising the first two films, and especially in regards to The Last Jedi, labeling those who didn't like it as some of the worst things imaginable, it suddenly became okay to bash Star Wars, with many critics absolutely panning The Rise of Skywalker, though they still did manage to place some blame on the fans, with some claiming that the worst of the worst in the fandom were catered to with that movie, which is why a character like Rose Tico saw significantly reduced screen time, and why the movie itself was, as one critic I read put it, a nostalgia-laden pile of crap, only they didn't use crap. Because sure, all Star Wars fans love horrible fan service. They love insignificant callbacks to the previous films, like calling Palpatine's plan the Final Order. They don't want meaningful connections to what came before, like somehow weaving Anakin, the Chosen One and arguably the main character of the first 6 movies, into the final part of the story, the final part of the Skywalker saga, which saw a Palpatine, in the end, become the hero. No, they'd much rather get surface-level nonsense or a meta moment like Chewie getting a long overdue medal, which is something fans have talked about for years, even though in story, Chewie probably would have long since forgotten or never even cared. And even though a book that came out a few years ago explained that he already got a medal, but that it wasn't presented to him at the ceremony that we see in A New Hope, because, if I recall right, it wouldn't fit around his neck. Furthermore, I love that the haters of The Last Jedi were blamed by some critics for the way The Rise of Skywalker turned out, that again they were specifically catered to, even though for 2 years some critics and those in the media, as well as some fans, insisted it was only a loud, angry, tiny minority of man-babies who didn't like that film. Seems so strange to me for Disney and Lucasfilm to then appeal to this small percentage of fans who were the worst of the worst. But I digress here, because what's really bringing this video on is I recently had a rather lengthy discussion via email with someone I do consider a friend. Not someone I personally know, but they've been watching my videos for years and have commented frequently over that time, and we've had many great Star Wars discussions. Now, I'm not going to name them, though I did ask if they were okay with me making this video, and they not only said yes, but they even encouraged me to do so, because we both did get something out of our conversation, and hopefully you will too. And do note going into the rest of this video, this is kind of a candid story, so just know that in advance. Anyway, this person was or has been very much in agreement with me in regards to The Last Jedi over the years, that they didn't enjoy the film overall, to put it mildly, and specifically didn't like the handling of Luke Skywalker. On most of the videos I made criticizing that film, they were right there commenting and more or less cheering me on, and again, we had a lot of discussions about it along the way, almost always seeing eye to eye. However, turns out this person really enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker, and I mean really enjoyed it, like best of the saga enjoyed it. And despite what I said at the top about a sort of truce coming out of the movie, that wasn't so much the case with this person. In fact, every time I made a video that was at all critical of Episode 9, they were right there disagreeing with me, sometimes very adamantly so. Which is fine. I appreciate those who disagree with me as much as those who agree with me. I don't claim to be the final word on anything. Rather, I like to see myself as maybe the start of a conversation. I like to see my videos and my channel in general as just one long discussion about Star Wars and other related topics, and sometimes topics that shouldn't be related to Star Wars but have become that way. People often ask me why I start every video out by saying now. Well, one of the reasons I do it is because it almost, or I see it as, a shift in topic from the last video I have done. Like, again, this is just one long conversation, and this is what the topic is becoming now. That, and when I first started making videos without ever realizing it, I started like half my videos by saying now anyway. Again, mostly because I've always wanted them to feel more like a discussion than just me talking at others or telling you what you should think or feel about something. That said, as I made more and more videos about the rise of Skywalker and presented more issues I had with the film, and mind you, I don't hate the movie, it's okay for what it is. Anyway, as I made more and more videos, this person, shall we say, and they agreed with me when we discussed it, well, they got more and more hostile and they started to turn on me. At one point they said I had now become someone who just hates for the sake of hating and wanting to appease my audience, that I wasn't being fair towards the film, because I was afraid if I opened up and talked about how I actually liked it, I would lose subscribers. And I did, in a sense, relent to them a bit on this issue, because I have gotten to the point where I am fortunate enough to be able to do YouTube for a living, and I don't want to have a Thanos moment where half my audience instantly vanishes because of something I do or say. And so I'd be lying to all of you if I said it never crosses my mind that saying how I really feel about something that perhaps a large portion of my audience or viewers might completely disagree with might cause people to unsubscribe and never watch again. But then I remind myself of what I want to be about here, that I want this to be a fair and honest discussion at all times, and that no matter what video I do or what I may say in a video, there's still always going to be people that will completely disagree and never watch again. There's always an immediate dip in subscribers when I put up a new video. So I always try to be true to myself and honest with those who watch my videos and appeal to those who appreciate honesty and a good discussion. Along those same lines, I also often get accused of being more neutral in videos or trying to show things from all sides, simply because they feel I don't want to lose subs or I want to play both sides of the fence, which I can certainly see how it comes across that way. However, a lot of the times what I say in my video is just my opinion, no more, no less, and no more or less valid than your own. And the reason I give it is to hopefully give people something to think about and talk about, to give us all something to discuss. And if I want that to actually happen, if I want people to listen and consider my words, I have to be willing to listen and consider their side of things as well. If you start out by telling someone they're wrong, likely they'll drown out the rest of what you say. And so the irony I pointed out to this person, who was essentially telling me to shut up about the rise of Skywalker already, after again cheering me on for 2 years to rip apart The Last Jedi, and sometimes saying I didn't go far enough in that, is the same irony I point out to anyone and everyone who attacks me for any kind of negative stance I take on something. You can't win by hating on someone you think is a hater. You can certainly hate on them if you want to, or go after them, but if you're trying to make a point about them being hateful and how wrong or bad it is, you're failing miserably. Because if someone dislikes something and wants to talk about it, even if they want to rip it to shreds, what point do you think you prove by doing the exact same thing to them? You're basically doing the very thing you're upset about in the first place. Now, that said, I don't have any problem with people who want to criticize me in the comments of my video or anywhere else online, really. I might defend myself against them, I might give back a little something, but as long as what someone says is not overly profane or is a threat, I certainly won't delete people in the comments who come after me or vigorously disagree with my stance on something. If I did that, I'd just be a hypocrite, because I willingly put my videos up in a large public space, which automatically opens them up to all forms of criticism. By sharing them, I'm inviting it. Just like if someone makes a movie or a large studio makes a movie and asks you to spend your money to come see it, people have every right to criticize it however much they want and for as long as they want. just like someone who disagrees with them has every right to ignore them, try to engage them in a civil manner, or to attack them back if they really want to, and call them a hater and all that other fun stuff. But maybe the real issue or irony here is that somehow the word hate or hater has both taken on so many more meanings or expanded what it means, yet at the same time has also become almost meaningless. I mean, I've been called hater so many times I just shrug it off and go about my business at this point. And I'm sure there are some in the Star Wars community or who make quote-unquote negative videos about it who get called that far, far more than I do, not to mention worse things. Going back to what I was talking about earlier, it was horrible that some, certainly not all, media outlets and critics and some fans conflated dislike for a movie like The Last Jedi with genuine hate for some of the actors or actresses or the groups they belong to. I mean, isn't it possible that most, if not almost all, the people who didn't like it just didn't like it? Do people really have to justify not liking a movie? Just because it has a prominent female character shouldn't make it immune to criticism. And none of this is meant to be a defense of anyone out there who didn't like it just because of the female characters or whatever else it might be. But how many people like that are really out there? Maybe a lot, sure, but maybe it's also not as many as some want to believe. And if you don't want their numbers to increase, maybe don't suggest that any issue with a movie containing strong female characters puts you among their numbers. We tend to create our own worst enemies, even when our cause is good. And though equality for all is and always will be a just cause, or something we should strive for, the more you insist someone is full of hate for a certain group of people just because a member of that group is represented in something they ended up not liking, the more resentful they may actually become of that group. The goal should be for everyone to be on equal ground, even when it comes to things like criticism. You can't put some on a pedestal and say they're immune because of past and maybe even current offenses towards a group that they may belong to. Anyway, going back to this person who had taken issue with me over the rise of Skywalker, and wrapping up this video, which I hope has made some sense, they eventually emailed me and half apologized for the way they'd been in the comments lately, and half laid out what their problem was with me. And we emailed back and forth several times, and I think learned a little something from each other because we were willing to listen to one another and not just make assumptions. And I certainly do get that people don't like hearing things they enjoy being criticized or torn apart. I do get that. I don't do it to purposely anger anyone who likes it or to appease the masses who watch my videos, nor am I trying to promote hate. If anything, I try to do the opposite with my videos, despite what some people think. Simply put, people don't have to justify their dislike of a movie or fear being accused of something because they don't enjoy it. It is okay not to like things. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Hope you enjoyed this slightly different video, and perhaps I'll do a few more like it in the future, or videos where I address specific questions from you all, or just try to get productive conversation started, whether that be on aspects of Star Wars or other things altogether. Anyway, leave a comment below and tell me what you think about that idea or about anything I said in the video. And let's talk some Star Wars or whatever else. And until next time, thanks for watching.